Welcome, viewers. This is Brian J.T. Watts with another episode of Come Together. Today, we'll be talking to one of my mentors, Dr. Jamie Jenkins. Great interview with a great guy. So just sit back and relax. And after the intro, we'll be there with Jamie Jenkins. All right.
This is the greatest game of telephone that has ever been played. Someone said the black man doesn't raise his kids or care for his family, and that message is still being told to everyone today. They even have us saying,
we are not a monolith. We have various opinions and thoughts. We are much more than what we are portrayed to be by the media.
even when we are the victims of injustice, we are still portrayed as the perpetrators. When it comes to the black man, there is an intentional plan to discredit the past, arrest the present, and destroy the future.
Something must be done, but nothing will work until we come together.
Hey, viewers, this is Brian J.T. Watts here once again. Today we have Dr. Jamie Jenkins. I'm going to tell you this guy is one of my mentors. I know he looks too young to be one of my mentors, but he's definitely one of my mentors. Really put me in some good positions in education when I lived in Nashville. And I'm going to let him tell you a little bit more about himself. How you doing today, Jamie?
Hey, doing phenomenal, man. Good to be on here with you. Always good to see you.
Okay.
One of my best friends. I love seeing you doing big things, man.
Hey, I'm trying. We're gonna try to make this a big thing too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
So look, tell the viewers a little bit about what it is let them know what you have done and what you're doing now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I spent 24 years as an educator, 8 years in the classroom, and then the last 16 as an administrator, assistant principal, head principal, all at the high school level. Recently was fortunate enough to be able to position myself to be able to retire a little early. So finished in 24 years. So that obviously feels good, but was for an amazing purpose, which was to join my wife in our family dental practice. And so she can focus on teeth. I run the day-to-day operations. And then it also just afforded me the opportunity to focus on some other passions that I have, such as personal training, which I really enjoy, and investing.
Cool, man. Listen, I know you have done a lot. Every time that I speak to teachers that were in Nashville with us, when your name comes up, it's always something, a smile or something where somebody's like remembering, enjoying good times. It was weird because a lot of us felt like, if we had taught at other schools, that our administrators were usually these hard people, and I understand in some cases why some people would have to be that. Somehow you were able to exhibit some cool, and it didn't seem like you were ever really phased with a lot of stuff. I mean, I remember things going down in the school, and then I would see you, and you'd be like, "What's up, Watts?" I'm like, "Dude, did you not hear what's going on?" And you're like, "Oh yeah, we took care of that." And I'm like, what? Like, this guy is never phased. So what was the secret to your sort of just your coolness about everything?
You know what, man? It all comes down to recognizing that life is about, growth. It's about having that positive mindset and just being thankful for what you have, man. It's like I grew up, very humble in inner city Nashville. And I just remember just believing that one day I would be able to get out of there, do something special with my life, help other people. And, that was always my mission, if you will. That was always my calling. So when I went into education, that was the mission. That was the calling then, right? Like, just to be that positive spirit within the building, show people that times can be challenging, but we still have the ability to carry ourselves in a way that sees the world in a positive way. And that's just how I always was. So, and I've always been kind of cool under pressure, I've learned along the way that remaining calm under pressure actually is more, you end up being more successful than losing your cool. So, and the reality of it is, and I just had this conversation with someone yesterday, the reality of it is, while education can be very challenging, we may have an irate parent, we might have a student conflict going on, we may have any array of possible challenges happen throughout the course of a day. But guess what? Also in the course of that day, we may have a student stop by and see us who's in desperate need of our help. Right. We may have a student who's suicidal, someone who's having a tough time at home, someone who needs that motivation. And guess what? If we look ruffled, if we look like we don't want to talk to you right now, if we look like we're not approachable in that moment, then we may have lost an opportunity to save someone's life. We may have missed an opportunity to motivate someone to be great. And so it was always, and it's always been very important to me to be able to turn that switch off when time comes, to be able to be there for the next person. Because if we're in education and we're not seeking to be servants at all times, then we're not doing the job. Because that's truly the number one job of being an educator, is being a servant, because kids are coming to us that look like us, who've gone through challenges in their lives, who, need some guidance, and who need to see positive male role models. They don't oftentimes get to see that. And, there are so many studies out there of people who didn't have a Black male teacher for practically their whole education. So, but the research also shows that having a Black male educator increases your likelihood of success. And so it just kind of makes sense that if I'm going to be that Black male educator, then I need to carry myself like that positive male Black educator who will have that type of impact on whoever I come in contact with.
Hey, that's definitely true. And I mean, I can tell you viewers that this is all true. I mean, everything, this man lived it every day. I remember coming to McGavick High School in Nashville, one of the biggest schools in Nashville, and huge school, so big. In fact, I remember the first day I taught summer school, and I came in, I parked my car, I came in, you took me to the room where I was going to teach, and I looked out the window, and I didn't see my car, and I lost my mind. I was like, yo, they stole my car already? And I was like, I'm losing it. And then you said, you was real calm. Then you said, hey, man, come here. Hey, it looks the same on both sides. That's the wrong side. You're on the other side of the building. And I was like, oh, for real? Okay, cool. Because, I didn't understand why they would have stolen my car. Mine was the worst car out there anyway. But I was like, oh, okay. So I remember I took a break and went to the other side of the building and looked out the window. I was like, okay, he's right. Okay, that's cool. Because, it was so, overwhelming to be in that building, especially in the summer, because there wasn't a lot of people in there, and it was huge. And I remember when I came to work there during the school year that Mr. Tribute, who was also one of my mentors, I don't even know what I'd have done without working for that guy. He just, the two of y'all, the team, the Batman and Robin team y'all had going on was insane. But he made sure he hired Black male teachers, not just affirmative action hires. These were people who could actually teach and could actually hold down the school. He didn't want the school to be like a jail, so he took the bars off the windows. He did all of that. And another thing that he asked us to do, he didn't force us to do, was to dress up. All of us wore shirt and ties. I remember some of the other teachers, they're the non-Black teachers, and it was cool that some of them wore polo shirts, but even some of them started to dress up after a while. And I just remember the days standing on the hall outside of our classroom between classes and looking down the hall and just seeing brothers dressed nice, and it wasn't church. You know what I'm saying? Seeing students actually change their behavior and walk up to us and shake our hands. Hey, how you doing, Mr. Watts? How you doing? Kids I didn't even know that I've never taught. And whenever I go to Nashville, somebody's like, hey, you Mr. Watts? Like, yeah, I went to McGavick. I'm like, did I teach you? No. Okay. But because we were out there and we were present, and a lot of those kids needed to see, like you said, they needed to see a lot of those young men, somebody who looked like them doing something positive. And there was a lot of respect because of the things that y'all did in that school. So I really respect what y'all put in place, because nobody was telling you to put this in place.
Right.
Nobody was helping you to put it in place. In fact, nobody was even expecting it to work.
Right.
So the guys that I have seen come out of there that did positive things with their lives, I'm so proud of them, and I'm proud of the way that we were able to influence them.
You know, the crazy thing about being at McGavick is that was my very first assistant principal position. I was so young. I was only 4 years into education, so I only spent 4 years in the classroom, went straight in to administration.
Wow.
And man, having Mr. Tribute as my first principal / mentor, man, that was phenomenal. Like he truly kind of navigated the pathway for me, showed me the ropes, and you know, just kind of indwelled in me this idea that you can work hard, you play hard, and you know, he probably didn't even realize it, but or maybe he did, and maybe I just picked up on it. But the importance of having a very diverse staff, as you mentioned, and not just diverse like unintentionally, meaning just hiring people that look different, but just specifically focusing on making sure that we had every population represented, so that when students walked into the building, they could find somebody to relate to, because McGavick was a pretty diverse school.
Right.
So if you don't have a diverse faculty, then, you know, some students won't find anybody to relate to. And so I carried that with me all the way through education. And in my last placement, you know, that was one of the things that I noticed immediately walking in the door, that we did not have a very diverse faculty. And so, and the school itself was 95% African-American, but we had very few African-American teachers. And so over the course of the 4 years that I was there as the head principal, man, we completely reversed that. And by the time I left, we had 18 Black men on staff, which was more than any other school in Nashville, quite frankly. And we were one of the smaller schools, which is crazy. So like, I literally like went looking for successful, positive male educators to come to our building. And man, we had a strong team. It's the first school that I can honestly say, like, we had less Black male disciplinary issues than we had anybody else.
Wow.
That's it literally, like, the boys had somebody to relate to, and the girls had someone to relate to, because we just kind of kept circling the wagons with like various diversities, and you name it, man. Our whole goal was to create like this very diverse faculty where everybody who walked in the door could find somebody they could connect with. And I mean, that would be one of those, that's a characteristic to me of a good leader, is you have to present people with someone they can relate to.
That's true. That's true. I think that's very important. And I didn't understand that before, but when I would talk to Mr. Tribune and he would break that down to me, I was like, you know what, that makes sense. And like you said, we had administrators. I mean, we saw the administrative staff. It was broken down just like the dynamic of the school, and so it made it real easy. There's a lot that you seem to have done on the school level that, to me, needs to be done in our communities. I think that in education, especially, I'm constantly looking at reports, and you know how everything is data driven now. So I'm always seeing people talking about they want to help out the farms population, which for people who don't know, the free and reduced lunch or free and reduced meals, people that are on that, who typically tend to be minorities. Okay, you know, usually Black and Hispanic kids who are on, or maybe even any other people who are from other countries. You know, our ESOL kids, the people who don't speak English as well. Those kids tend to be on that list as well. And for some reason, we're doing just tragically worse than most of the other students in the school building. What kind of things can we do? And I'm not talking about in the school building, in the community, to make this something that kids want now. Because right now, it seems in schools that most kids are just coming to school because either that's where they get their lunch or their meals from, or because they got to get out of the house and they got to go somewhere. Right. So what can we do to inspire kids to understand that education is still going to be the secret to a pathway that's successful?
You know, I think within the communities, it starts in a number of ways. One is obviously it starts in the household, but we know that we're going to face some struggles in the household. Mm-hmm. So from there, I mean, we have to flood the community. And what I mean by flood the community, we have to flood the community with positive stuff, right? We have to flood the community with positive support for kids who have tough home lives. That could look like, you know, just psychological support for some kids, but for some kids, it's like just the opportunity to see what life is like outside the blocks that they live on. Right. I know for me, that was certainly one of the catalysts for me growing up was while, you know, we lived in the projects, most of my time was spent outside of the projects because my mom always had me involved in camps, athletics, you know, things like that got me off those 3 or 4 blocks that we lived on, and kind of opened my world to like other possibilities. Okay. And so it's surrounding the community with positive male role models. And quite frankly, it doesn't even matter what color at that point. I mean, it doesn't matter what race at that point. What does matter is that the person that is offering this support is someone with a high level of integrity, someone who cares about people, someone who, you know, has kind of already, you know, experienced success in their life and can give great guidance. And so I'm always looking to get my kids, for example, involved in things even outside of our home that will surround them with other positive role models, because they may see their dad, but sometimes it's better to see somebody other than a parent doing well, because your parents are always the ones telling you to do well, telling you to get your education. So the more people that we have around them that are sending that same message, I feel like we're going to be much more successful. And so that's really what I've started to do now. I mean, outside of, you know, once I retired, I knew kids were just part of my life. That's never going to go away. And so, of course, I still give back to the community. So, of course, I run the summer track program in our area that gives kids the opportunity to see like this positive male role model that's teaching them and motivating them, but also talking about education too. You know, like you can kind of, you know, push those things in there in the course of running track, right? Because life and education and track, all those things are so synonymous in that struggles are going to occur in every scenario. And it's like teaching the kids how to overcome those little challenges when they pop up, persevering through those pains and those challenges, just, you know, continuing on to be successful. And then, of course, I donate time to the Suicide Prevention Network in Tennessee, because that's just very important to me and close to me. And so I feel like that's another way that we can really help our community by offering those kind of supports in a number of ways, right? And it does make life a little busy, but the reality of it is our life should be defined by the level of service we provide to other people. Because living that selfless life is really what's going to cause you to be the most successful, in my opinion.
No doubt. It's you know, I'm glad you mentioned about speaking to kids, you know, as you're doing running the track thing, because talking to them, you can have a coach that never says anything positive. It doesn't really change your life. You might be a great athlete now, but how much have you learned? And you know, I remember I got that from you one day. I don't know if you remember this. I was teaching and you came in to observe me. And my class, it started to act up a little, not a lot, but you know, I slowed it down, but then I stopped the lesson and I started talking to them, you know, just trying to get them to understand why they needed to act a certain way and how this was not going to be positive for them if they didn't learn this stuff. You know, I just really gave them maybe a 5 or 6 minute pep talk. And I was like, man, I done failed this observation. And because I'm like, you're there to me, y'all were there to see me teach, go through the lesson plan, do this, that, and the other. And I'm going to tell you, because I can't even go into why I'm like this, but when I think something like that, I just figure I'm right about that. So I'm like, that's what he's here for. He about to get on me for stopping class. And I remember after everybody left, you were walking out, and I said, "Hey man, sorry for taking up the instructional time with that motivation talk." You was like, "What? Man, that's what you're supposed to do." And I was like, "Oh wait, what?" And he was like, "Yeah, man, you pulled them back in, you corralled them, you got them back, and then after that they listened to you. That's what you're supposed to do. What was you thinking?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, okay, that was pretty stupid. Okay, so yeah, I'm gonna keep doing that every once in a while." And it felt good to see somebody say to me, "Your style is what we want in this classroom." That's what I think a lot of teachers need to hear, because teachers don't realize that it's not just the content that you're putting out there. You're putting part of yourself out there. If you're not putting part of yourself out there, kids are never going to get it. They're never even going to attach. They're not going to look at you as somebody they want to talk to or anything. And I got more kids talking to me than I ever wanted. I mean, back then there were kids coming to me, telling me stuff that I was like, "Oh, don't tell me that." But, they felt like, "Oh, I can trust him. I need to talk to somebody. I need this and the other." So, it's good. And I really was happy that, like I said, you and Mr. Chabu and a few other people, y'all really sort of opened me up to be like, okay, I can be me in this classroom. I can tell my stories with math. I can do this, I can do that, and really, really just, corral these kids. And it worked for the amount of years that I was there and in the Nashville system. So you being this big community guy now, I mean, you're everywhere. You have kids of your own. I'm sure they're doing great. How are they doing?
Man, phenomenal. I have a junior in college. I have a sophomore in college. And then, of course, I have a fourth grader and a second grader. And man, when I tell you, Brian, they're all doing well. Some, there are times where I look at my life and I say, man, all this from a little ghetto boy. You know what I mean? Like, that's real. Like, it feels really good to have 4 successful kids coming from like where I'm from. Like, it's just, but it reaffirms to me that for every life we impact, we could be literally like destroying generational poverty.
No doubt.
The teachers, the coaches I had, the mentors I had growing up, they eliminated generational poverty in my family. I mean, it's real simple. They did that through me in one generation. Like, it's because of the impact that they had. I mean, man, I was just a little kid from the projects. Nobody else in the family graduated from high school. Mom did, none of my brothers and sisters. But the coaches and the teachers that I had and the mentors I had that turned me around. And really, it didn't even happen for me until after 6th grade, because I failed 6th grade.
Wow.
But then I just had this amazing group of teachers that second year of 6th grade that really just, they just refused to let me fail. They were like, "We see something in you. We see something bright in you. We see something special in you." And I literally went from failing 6th grade one year to becoming an honor roll student from the second year of 6th grade all the way through.
Wow.
Basically, because I've never stopped learning. So really, I would say I've been an honor student since that second year of 6th grade, because I've never stopped learning. Like, I'm always looking for the next thing to do to just kind of improve my own like ability to help others. So like, I've gone back and got my personal trainer certification. I've gone back and gotten life coach certified. I've even, when I decided to go into the dental field with my wife, I decided to go back and be a dental assistant. So I took dental assistant class and I'm a registered dental assistant now. So it's like this constant pursuit of knowledge and just, ways that I can serve other people. You can't quantify that. You can't quantify that. Like that's just something. And so to your point, what you were talking about in the classroom, oftentimes we view relationships, at least relationships with students, as a checklist, but it's not a checklist.
Right.
Like you can't just go in and say, "What's your favorite pizza?" And hey, let's fill out this worksheet about your life. And then you toss it in a drawer and say, "I build relationships with kids." You didn't build anything with that kid. All you did was have them write down what they like. And then every now and then you might look at that sheet. Right. But what are you truly investing in that kid? So those moments, those 5-minute moments that you spent with those kids just talking life.
Right.
And man, that's what builds relationships.
Oh, you're not lying.
You build relationships through that. You build relationships through going to the games, checking them out at their game, and then saying, bro, that dunk the other night that you did was crazy. Like, and then having that whole conversation, right, with that student, and now that student feels like I have an ally here at the school that I can come and talk to. And so there's no surprise why they come to Mr. Watts to talk and not Miss So-and-so, because Mr. Watts is always talking to me about life.
Like, I mean,
he's always giving me advice.
Yeah, it's all different thing that happens. It's weird because there were times like, I left there and went to Maplewood, which was one of the rougher schools at that time. And there were guys that I knew were into serious thug behavior. And one guy, I was an assistant principal, and I had to suspend him a couple times, and he was always mad because I guess he was losing out on his sales whenever I had to suspend him. And one day I'm out in Nashville and I'm walking around and it's late, and I'm like, I guess I'm in a parking lot somewhere downtown, and I see this guy and I'm like, oh man, I'm out here in the street. It's this kid that I know what he does. I don't want him to see me. I just want to get to my car. And as soon as I start walking, he turns around. He was like, Mr. Watts. And I was like, oh, here we go. It's dark out here. This is it. He said, what's up, man? You my guy, man. And he hugged me. And he was like, what's going on with you? And I was like, wow. Even the kids who we disciplined against what they wanted still had respect. Mm-hmm. They still appreciated. Nah. Yeah, you had to get on me sometimes, Mr. Watts. But, I was tripping. Wow. Oh, so you got the lesson. Okay, cool. I mean, I had no idea that it was still going into their minds. Mm-hmm. And I think that if we can get people like us to get out into the community like you're doing, like a lot of people are doing, but if we can get a concerted effort, we can really save our community because people will realize somebody's out here that cares. It's not like it was when I was young. I grew up in the projects as well in the South Bronx. But I know if I went outside, there was always some old man that knew my dad. They'd be like, what's up, young man? And would stand there and talk to me about something, whether I wanted to hear it or not. They sitting on the bench, you know what I'm saying? And I came up with this saying that everybody in your life is a teacher. They're either going to tell you what to do or they're going to show you what not to do. But they're teaching you regardless. And I had to start to make those determinations with people. But there was always some older person, whether it was a woman. I still remember this lady, Miss Harriet, used to be outside digging these flowers. And I was like, why is she planting flowers in the projects? What's wrong with her? Don't she know it's the projects? But she ended up with these tall sunflowers that I had never seen before in my life. Yeah. All we had was sunflower seeds. You know what I mean? She had these big sunflowers just in front of my building. And I was like, wow, that's amazing. She's putting beauty in because that's what she wants to see here. She wants to see something positive. And she knows we're like, wow, is that where sunflower seeds come from? We had no idea. We thought they just came from the store. So, it was a lot of that. I don't see a lot of that now. I think everybody has gotten so busy and our kids don't really go outside anymore. Mm-hmm. Everybody's staying inside. They're on social media or they're on games or whatever. So I will tell you this, come together as a show. I want it to be more of an outreach at some point where we're traveling around or we're going places and we're speaking and we're talking to kids and doing things like that because somebody needs to let them know. There's no way for them to know. They're not going to hear from the media. Right. They're not going to hear it on their video games and they're not going to see it on YouTube. So somehow we got to pull them out and get to that point. What would you say has been the secret with your 4 kids? What do you have, 2 girls and 2 boys?
2 girls and 2 boys, man. And honestly, the secret has been just loving them. Honestly, like loving them, prioritizing, what we do in our home, prioritizing what is important. We refer to ourselves as Team Jenkins. And so I've always, raised my kids with the understanding, like, you have to be a good teammate. And being a good teammate in the home looks like it has to fit within our family, right? Like, so it can't be all about you, right? It's about the team.
Okay.
So everything that we do, we have to look at it from, okay, what's the best for the team right now in this moment? And that's really worked for us in that regard, because it's created a scenario where they're not really selfish.
Right.
Like they know that their time has to be, like when it comes to things they want to do, like it has to fit with what the family can do. And whether or not it's going to inconvenience the family too much or not. But it creates like this kind of servant sort of a mindset as well, where they know like, hey, well, if we get this done, then we can go do this.
Okay.
So it kind of has created that too. But then it's just like valuing education, man. Like I've seen what education has done for me. My wife also grew up in a single parent home. And so, you know, for us, it's always been very important for our kids to understand that we worked really hard to get to where we are.
Right.
And in order for that to continue, we have to really value the things that has allowed us to get to that point. And education has been probably the greatest catalyst for that. And
in more ways than one.
Yeah, in more ways than one. You know what I mean? Like, because it's created opportunities for our kids to be able to do things that we weren't able to do.
Right.
But it also has kind of created this mindset that without it, we can't really reach the pinnacle of where we want to go. And if we're going to keep like this kind of momentum going of, you know, having sustainable wealth in our family, then we have to really be purposeful about how we treat the luxury of education, because it's truly a luxury, right? You don't have to get one. Like you choose to get one. I mean, because you can show up at school every day and not get an education. If you
no question.
You know what I mean? Like we know that because we are educators. We know that there are kids who show up every day and they don't take advantage of that opportunity.
That's right.
And I didn't want that for my kids, and we didn't want that for our kids. So, you know, so we're always learning in our home, you know, and I think that's part of the reason why I'm always looking for the next thing to learn too, because I need my kids to see me continuing to like branch out and do new things to show them like there are no excuses, right? If I can do this from James Casey housing projects, meaning I started on first base,
right,
and you starting in the suburbs,
right,
on third base in a 2-parent household,
right,
you have no excuses. Like you have no excuses. Your path to success is much shorter than mine was.
Right.
And so I've just been very blessed to you know, have a mom who showed me that love kind of trumps everything anyway. Like she told me every day she loved me, hugged me every day, encouraged me every day. And man, I'm like that with my kids. I saw research, matter of fact, I saw a research study, and I don't know if it was like true research but it was a child psychologist, and he was on Instagram. He was saying that you know, fathers who kiss their sons regularly, their kids tend to do better in school. And, you know, of course, there are a lot of missing pieces to that, right? Because it's like the type of dad who kisses his kids every day is probably also the type of dad who values education, who wants to see their kid be successful, and would probably sacrifice everything he owns to make that happen. You know what I mean? So it's like also the type of dad that you have. So that's probably also the type of dad who has like that nurturing side to him, you know, that's
with his feelings and all of that.
He's not afraid to, you know, show that to his kids. And I've always been that guy. Like I can be tough, but I don't want to be tough. Why do I need to be tough? You know what I mean? Like
it's only for the times when I need it. I don't need that.
Like I only need to be tough when I need to be tough. I don't need to be tough when I'm showing my kids that it's okay to hug, it's okay to cry, it's okay to kiss, it's okay to be to care about other people. You know what I'm saying? Right. And honestly, that's really how I've run my home. Like I tell my kids multiple times, I tell my wife multiple times throughout the day how much I love them, how much I care about them. Like I'm always showing them this is what love looks like. And this is how we do it. And as a result, I mean, we've been very successful. I mean, obviously there are other things like reading to your kids, you know, supporting their academics even outside of the school days. So like if our kids aren't bringing homework home, we're still doing stuff with them of an educational, you know.
Y'all are old school then, basically.
Yeah. I mean, we still learning, even though you know, you might have left school for the day. We still gonna do some more stuff because the school can only do so much.
That's right. You're the first school.
We want to truly be successful. We got to branch out and learn even more stuff. And we don't spend a ton of time doing that. I mean, it's just 20, 30 minutes. You know what I mean? It might be, hey, let's go read this book about Frederick Douglass. Right. Let's read a chapter of this together. You know, so it doesn't have to be like, oh, you know, like, man, I come home, I got another 2-3 hours of school. You know, it doesn't have to be that way. But your kids need to see that you value education.
Right.
And when they see that you value education, they value education.
That's right. That's right.
My oldest daughter went to Xavier on a full academic ride.
Wow.
And was able to just walk on to the track and cross country team, because I always told her, like, we're not running to get a scholarship.
Wow.
We're learning to get a scholarship. We're gonna get a scholarship academically. And if you get that academic scholarship, we can just walk on to the track team. And so we pushed for that. My other daughter graduated from high school a year early. My first son doing great, straight A's this year in 3rd grade. And then we started our youngest in kindergarten a year early. And by the time that he finished that first year in kindergarten, he had already tested gifted. So he's going into 2nd grade. And I'm like, Brian, all of this from a little dude from the project, little Jamie from the projects.
Listen, I'm gonna tell you.
Who don't even know his daddy, right? Don't even know who he is. Like, you might be my daddy. I don't even know. I wouldn't know him. I wouldn't know him if I saw him. Like all of that. Like, how can I not be happy? So like going into education, man, that was just kind of always my motto. Like, dude, like if I can get here from where I came from, how can I not be content with my life? And then how can I not help other people in a positive way reach their personal goals? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I have to be that positive influence. Like I can't be walking down the hallway pretending like this job ain't important. I can't dress like it ain't important. I can't speak like it's not important, because it is. And so throughout the years, like, just like you mentioned, those 5-minute conversations in class, man, I had full days like that sometimes when I was in the classroom, because guess what? If a kid can learn history, great. But if a kid can learn what it takes to be successful, that's even better.
No doubt.
And guess what? If I can build such a relationship with a group of kids that they will trust me, then teaching the history becomes easy. We can learn. We can pretty much double step what we missed that one day.
That's right.
Just because now they're so in tune to like their teacher, because they know this dude care about me. So man, I'm gonna learn whatever he want me to learn just because I know he got my back.
That's right. They'll do it for you. I'm amazed because there's a lot that's coming out that I didn't know, man. I mean, and you've broken some big things that people say. You've broken them down and made them irrelevant. I mean, people swear that you can't learn to be a dad if you don't know who your dad is, and that's not true, because you have raised 4 kids to be excellent students already. You know what I'm saying? There are things that you have done because of the people who poured into you and because of the choices that you made. And a lot of people, of course, you don't want to start somebody out with a negative if you don't have to, but there are people who start out with negatives that can make them positives. And I think that's what we're trying to show people, is that, some people might have started in a bad way. Yeah, some of us started in the projects. I mean, believe me, that was something I was trying to give. I went away to college just so I could get out of the projects. Yeah. You know, I mean, I was like, I'm not coming back. You know, I might come back for the holidays, but I'm not living here no more. You know, that's just what it is. And people say to me, man, you're not from no projects. Like, why not? You don't seem like it. I don't know what that means, but you know what I'm saying? That's where I'm from. And, you know, that's what it is. So I think there's a lot people like us need to be testifying and letting people know, like, listen, this wasn't something easy. This is where we came from. This is what we achieved. This is what we got over and how we got over, so that other people can know, hey, it can happen. And I think that you've also done something that a lot of people don't realize they should do. I keep having this discussion with some of my friends. There are a lot of successful Black people who seem to think that the struggle is what got them over, and so they want to see other Black people struggle. And I'm like, no, why would you make me go through it if you know I have the skills, I have the talents, that you want to see me, you know, get dirty in the mud because that's what you did. You didn't do that for yourself. You did that for your community so you could help pull somebody else up. So I definitely see all of that in you. I'm very proud to see that in you, man. I've always liked the fact that you're very open to with your past and with your life and everything. Everybody knows Dr. Jenkins' story if they need to know. You know what I'm saying? If it needs to come out, it just comes out. And you've never been one to shield even something that might have been negative if it's going to help somebody. Yeah. So let me ask you.
You brought up a good point. I mean, struggle is good. I mean, you learn a lot from struggle. But what I've also learned in life is you never get to a point in life where you don't struggle. Like everybody struggles. Like I still struggle. Like there are still struggles in my life, right? Like just like before we came on air, I told you I was recently diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. I mean, that's a struggle.
Right. There you
like,
go.
That's a new struggle. It looks different than, you know, other struggles people might view as challenges for them being successful. But so to your point, yeah, like why would you want someone else to go through like a struggle that you've already experienced when you have some knowledge that you can share with that person to ease their way through that challenge, right? Because guess what? That's not going to be the only challenge they have to deal with in life.
They got more coming.
There's more coming. Like that's a promise. Like it's not going to be this crystal staircase through life. It's going to be other struggles. But what you're doing is you're helping them understand struggles. So it's not an idea of, oh no, man, they need to deal with all that pain that I dealt with. No, they don't. No. You need to help them understand how to navigate struggles. Right. And giving them that information is helping them to understand how important it is to navigate through difficult times. Just like that's why I chose to be, I didn't choose to be a track coach. I guess I chose to be a track coach. But what I love about coaching track is that I present the kids with an adequate amount of struggle on the track. Right. But what I always kind of complement that with is reminding them that you see what you did today. Right. Like this was one of the toughest practices we've ever had. Wow. And you conquered it. Life is going to be that same way. You're going to deal with struggles and it's going to hurt sometimes and you're going to feel the pain and you're going to have to do things that you don't necessarily feel like you need to do or want to do, right, but they're necessary for you to actually be successful. And now you'll be able to look at those struggles in the face and say, you're not going to beat me.
That's right. That's right.
You're not going to shut me down because you've been out on this track, sweating in the heat, running these hills, like dealing with some of the toughest stuff that you've had to deal with. Right. Life is going to be the same way. So it's teaching people how to cope with struggle. Not, I want you to go through a struggle. I want them to go through a struggle, but show them how to cope with the struggle.
Right. Wow.
So that they don't give up. Because guess what? That's in our community, in my opinion, that's where we go wrong more times than not, is that we prematurely give up.
Right.
We prematurely give up on kids. Yeah. We prematurely give up on ourselves. Right. And that causes us to not be successful. Because the bottom line is, guess what? If we stay in the struggle with our kids, and if we stay in the struggle with ourselves, everything always works out.
I mean, it's got to at some point. I mean, it's a law of probabilities and everything. I mean, so tell me this. I'm listening to what you're saying about how you're raising your kids and how you've gotten them to certain points. When it comes to these alarming things that have been happening in our society, we saw Black men being killed unmercifully in the streets, and Black women as well. The whole Breonna Taylor and George Floyd and all of these just polarizing things happening. We've seen just so many things happen to our community. How do those things go over with your kids? How do you express those things to them without making them sort of, anti everything? Because so many people, I think there's so many people who've seen the George Floyd stuff and now they're anti-police, or you see R. Kelly or Bill Cosby, and now you're anti-entertainment or you're anti-establishment or whatever. what kind of things are you teaching them to make them see that these things are not just, everyday occurrences? These are anomalies, and these things happen, but you have to watch out. What's your way of bringing that across to them?
Yeah, and I don't know that they're anomalies, honestly. It's like, they're real events that are really happening in our community and to our community. And so, that's in our home, I would say we take a twofold approach to that. The first approach is, one, always be respectful. Like I've always taught my kids, like, we have to carry ourselves in a way that shows that we're dignified and that we are important and that we mean something. And so I've always taught my kids to respect authority within reason, right? Because at some point you have to say, all right, well, I'm going to notate this badge number and I'm going to do this, in another way. But in general, respect authority, right? Respect your mom, respect your dad, respect your elders, respect law enforcement, respect anybody who's in an authoritative position.
Right.
But also protect yourself, meaning like keep enough of a shield around yourself that you don't get taken advantage of. Right. And so we teach that. And then, of course, just safety, right? I teach them like how to stay in contact with us, how to, navigate when you're in a challenging situation. Like, here's how you protect yourself in those situations. Because, the reality of it is we know that there are some great law enforcement officers out there, but we know there are some who either purposefully or because it is ingrained in them, don't know how to interact with African Americans.
Right.
Because the reality of it is, I don't know that every officer that has perpetrated what I believe to be a crime against an African American male has been someone who I would consider to be racist by choice. I think there's a population of people who are racist because of how either they were raised and they don't recognize biases, you know what I mean? Like they just don't recognize how biased they are, or they are so inundated with negative information the same way that we are, that they view African Americans as a threat. You know what I mean? Because I feel like that's what media does to us. They do it to us in our own community, right? I mean, you could talk to another African American who is afraid of African Americans.
Oh, no question.
But because of what they've seen on TV.
Exactly.
Like I've come across teacher after teacher who will never admit that they have a bias, or maybe they don't even think they have a bias against African American boys.
Right.
But it's like I see it as clear as day.
Right.
Like I see it as clear as day in how they interact with them from the first day they walk into the classroom, based off of how they look or how they carry themselves. And that is such a turnoff for me.
Right.
Because the reality of it is, I've been a teacher in a classroom and a principal in front of students who look like the toughest kids, who look like they probably, don't care about their education, don't care about nothing.
Right.
But the moment I say I'm about to suspend you, they care.
Yeah. That's
and that one little opening allows me to say, you know what? This kid cares about his education. I've got this. It's now my job to figure out what it is that's going to be the catalyst for him wanting to get his education.
Right.
Because right now he kind of wants it. He kind of teetering.
Right.
And that's those moments where you can either make a kid or you can break a kid. And it drives me crazy when we break kids on a regular basis, when we have the opportunity to make a kid great, just by simply sitting down with the kid and saying, hey, man, I see something greater in you. Just like my teachers did with me. Man, I see something greater in you. I see a star in you that you maybe don't see in yourself yet, but I'm willing to help you find it.
Right.
I'm willing to sit down with you and figure out what we can do to find that star, let it come out, because it's there. And you just haven't realized it yet.
You definitely do that, because that's one of the other things that y'all taught me. I was ready for kids at first. I was just like, man, just get this kid out of here. And I started to realize that some of them were acting out because they wanted more attention from me or they needed something else. There's so many kids that I ended up just relaxing and talking to after class, pulling them aside, seeing them in the hallway, pulling them aside. Hey, let me holler at you for a minute. Just like I would see y'all do it. And I realized that I made a lot of guys realize, hey man, somebody's pulling for me. I need to do something better.
My first year at East, so this was just like 4 years ago. I was at our football game, and this kid came down from out of the stands. I was kind of standing with the cheerleaders against the fence, and he was just yelling my name. He's like, Dr. Jenkins, Dr. Jenkins. I couldn't remember who the kid was. I knew his face, but I couldn't really remember in that moment who he was. And so I walked over to him, and I started to remember, like, oh, okay, this kid I had over at McGavick. He was at McGavick, and he just kind of, gave me, how we do, gave me the handshake, pulled me in close, and this joker whispered in my ear, man. He said, man, I just want to thank you, Dr. Jenkins, man. You saved my life. And I said, man, you're a trip. He said, no. Like it's like he grabbed me even harder and was like, no, like I'm serious. Like
right.
I would be dead right now if it wasn't for you. He said, but instead I'm in the music industry in Atlanta and doing great and have a family. And I was just like blown away. Like I went home that night, dude. You probably hear my voice cracking now. It's like I got home that night and was just like, and I've had more stories like that, but that one really struck me because it's been one of the more recent ones. And it was just like, man, like we just never know. And this was a kid who was getting in trouble, blah, blah, blah. But every single time he would come to my office, we would have just real life conversation about, look, man, like I see something greater in you. Like you're a good kid. I said, you're kind of ill-informed at times. And I said, you make poor choices at times. I said, but in those moments where you're not doing those things and you and I are in the hallway talking, dude, I see something real intelligent about you. Like I see something that will cause you to be successful if you just tap more into that.
Right.
Into that other stuff. Exactly. And that's the piece that we miss. And that's what I mean by we prematurely give up on kids, because that could have easily been a kid I just expelled from school.
There you go.
Suspended on a regular basis. I mean, I probably could have, and I did suspend him some, but I probably could have suspended him probably double the amount of times that I did, because it's equally as important to me that we invest those moments in time to just sit down and talk to people and help them recognize what their experiences, how their experiences are affecting them.
Right.
What experiences we've had that might be similar and how they affected us, but then also help them navigate like those treacherous waters, right? Because at the end of the day, that's where, I can let this kid struggle, right? So back to your point, like looping this thing back around. In those moments, I could just say, well, nah, he needs to struggle. I don't need to help him. Well, dang, he might be dead.
Right, exactly.
You blew up. I mean, the flip side of that is I can relate to your struggle and say, hey, I navigated that. This is how I did this. Or have you considered doing it this way? Because right now it's not really going in the direction that I know and feel in my heart that you want for your life. That might keep a kid from dying. So he's still struggling.
Very possible.
That doesn't mean the kid ain't still struggling.
You're
but
right.
At least now he's struggling with like another layer of knowledge, another layer of information that might help him get out of the struggle.
That's true. That's true. So do you think that if our communities were policed in the way that we educated kids in school, that it would be a better type of community?
Man, it depends on what you mean. I mean, if you mean that we're flooding the community with mentors and people who care about young people, then we would have the impact, the positive impact that would have in the community would be remarkable.
Right.
Now, if you're just going into the community, showing your face and leaving, I mean, the kids see straight through that. Kids see straight through that, just like they see through a teacher who comes every day just to get a paycheck.
Right.
So, it all comes down to what relationship are you truly establishing with the people that you meet?
Right.
Because you can go into a place and say, I'm building relationships and not really be building relationships. You could just be there talking to people, but you've not really built a bridge with that person. Like I've been in schools where I've been there 4 or 5 years, and then when I leave, I still don't know some of the people because we've been in the same spaces, but never built a single relationship. Versus I've been in situations where I've truly spent time getting to know people, like you, for example, and we built like this great connection. So even if I don't see Brian Watts for 10, 20 years,
right,
the moment I see him, it's like, man, we just like we were, in 2003, 2004.
I mean, that's what it's gonna be, no doubt. Definitely feel you on that. That's it's important. And I think that you've brought out some good stuff. Even though we typically talk about how to build up our men, everything you've said today has been relationship oriented. It's been judgment free. It's been, looking at what else we can see in a person and pulling out the good. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that I want people to hear, that I want our viewers to hear, to understand that there are people like you in the school system. There are people like you in the community. We can't keep holding everything to ourselves. I think a lot of people feel now like, oh, well, if I don't raise my kid by myself or keep them sheltered from outside, then they're not going to make it. And I'm like, no, outside is where they need to get. They need to meet people. They need to have relationships with people. Of course, you want to be leery of bad relationships and things of that nature, but it's a community for a reason. And there are things that we're going to learn from each other. And I'm just glad that I got out and was able to do that. There are so many things that I would say that y'all have done for me. If you, Miss Wyatt, Mr. Tribune, Dr. Harnett. I mean, everybody sort of, Jones, everybody sort of poured in. And I felt really good there. I felt kind of special at that school because so many people were like looking out. I know they were looking out for other people too, but I wasn't worried about that. I was like, they're poured into me. This feels good. I feel like I'm gonna make it. And I think the things that I got to do afterwards, even when negative things happened, y'all were still there to, say, hey, Watts, let's try this, or let's do this. We're gonna get this together. It was never like, man, give up on Watts. He don't know what he's doing.
Right.
So I always felt good, and I definitely appreciate that. So I definitely wanted to showcase you as one of our upstanding, positive men. And thank you for all the stuff you've said, because I think our viewers heard a lot about parenting and about just how to help build our community. There's so much that we can do. I have not forgotten that we're supposed to be working on a book. So let's get that together now that you are retired, even though your wife is working like a slave over there. It's all good. We're still gonna try to get that together, man. But thanks so much for coming out. Our viewers appreciate it.
Right on, man. Appreciate
all
you.
Right. No doubt. We'll talk to you again soon, man. Take it easy.
All right, man.
Hey, viewers, you may have noticed we are closing from another location, but we had some Wi-Fi issues, so let's take care of that. But thank you for coming, checking out Dr. Jamie Jenkins. That's just one of my people right there. He really sold a lot into me, and I hope that you learned something today too. And you can tell that he's very inspirational educator and very serious about education and about young people. So, keep watching the show, share with your friends, check out some of the other episodes that you might not have seen yet, and let us know what you think. All right. Thanks so much for coming out, and we'll look forward to seeing you again. Take it easy.